The fourth tension that led up to World War I is nationalism. So, nationalism is when you have this strong sense of loyalty or um, just commitment to your own nationality or ethnicity. And ethnicity pertains to a group of people that share a common culture, religion, or language. And the ethnic group that actually ends up sparking the war is a group of Serbians. So these ethnic groups that have been taken over by imperialism, by bigger countries, want to break away and form their own independent nations. They believe that people should be able to rule themselves. Another thing that led to a really strong sense of nationalism is this idea of conscription, or the idea of people serving in their military, or where the government makes you serve in your military, because then you become even more proud to represent your country. So the idea of being proud of your nationality, wanting to rule yourself, and wanting to fight for that. So that was another thing that created mistrust and a rivalry among the nations. So these four things end up being militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. Spelling the word main, these are the four main reasons or tensions that led to World War I. And so these underlying tensions in Europe is known or referred to as a powder keg. So a powder keg is an old-timey barrel that used to store gunpowder. And so if it sparks, it could set off an explosion. So I'm going to have you watch a video that tells you what that spark was. So we'll get to that in just a minute. So this area in Europe, was known as the Balkans. And so they referred to this as like a crisis in the Balkans. And that's actually where World War I begins. So the spark of the war, the event that marks the start, happens in the summer of 1914. And this is when a member of a Serbian nationalist group, also referred to as a terrorist group, called the Black Hand, ends up assassinating the heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary, and he ends up assassinating Archduke Ferdinand and his wife. And the Serbians, so Serbia is in this Balkan region, and Austria-Hungary had taken them over. So they did not want to be controlled by Austria-Hungary. After the assassination, Austria-Hungary accuses Serbia for the assassination, and they threaten war against Serbia if they don't turn over the assassin. Well, because of the alliances, people's friends start jumping into the mix, and then Russia backs Serbia because they are allies, and so on and so forth. So the idea is that the tension that leads to the spark is this sense of nationalism. You want to rule yourself. And so this crisis in the Balkans, this is where World War I begins. So there are these war declarations. So all the different countries end up declaring war against each other. It's a domino effect, and you can see the little drawing that I have here. And if we were talking about which of the actual war declarations, which tension would this be an example of? And this would be the alliances. So the nationalism is the assassination, and then the actual war declarations would be your alliances. So here is that map that I was talking about, where you can see all the red countries. Those are going to be your central powers, and they are located right in the center of Europe. And so although there were all these war declarations, none of the countries were actually fighting yet. But Germany is going to be the country that uses the crisis in the Balkans as an attempt to expand its boundaries to create an empire. So this is going back to that imperialism idea. They start this by occupying the neighboring country of Luxembourg, and they end up staging the German military there. They had also asked to go through Belgium. Belgium refused, and Belgium was asking for backup from Britain. And eventually, Germany then just invades Belgium in early August on its way to France. In this clip, or in this slide, I have a picture of myself when I visited one of the World War trenches that was left in a man's farm when he came back from World War I, and this is actually in Belgium. And so who are the two sides fighting each other? You have the Allied powers versus the Central powers. And so those pre-war alliances really kind of aren't exactly the same. And so you have France, Great Britain, Russia, and Italy, and then there's some others. And then the Central powers are the ones down the middle, and that's Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, or Turkey, and then Bosnia. So obviously there's a country that's missing from this list. What do you think is missing? The United States is missing. And the reason that the United States is missing is they wanted to stay out of it. President Wilson at the time declared that the United States was going to remain neutral. This idea is known as neutrality. We're not going to take sides. We're actually going to trade with both sides instead, providing them with supplies. And this way we're going to make a lot of money. So the idea is war is good for business.